Hey, what's up, you guys? This is Mike. Welcome to my channel. So, this episode, we're going to have a podcast between me and Alex Soreanu. It's not really a podcast, it's like an interview. And Alex is super interesting because he took a property and just kind of sat on it. And a few years later, he's got $100,000. And he's going to explain to you how he did that. We're going to talk about some other things. I just want to say that I tried a new way of recording the podcast. I tried to do I used this software called Tapicall, and it didn't work. It's going to be usable, but it's not the quality that I want. We're just going to go back to Zoom. But yeah, I mean, if you want to learn more about it, go ahead and stick around, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.
And we're going to go on to how did you develop? How did you develop as a person or as a real estate investor? Up to you. However you prepare the question.
How do I develop? Just like anything else, I'm a person that there's very few things that I like to repeat. So I don't like repetition. I always like to find something or learn something new. So even at my job, like even if I'm doing a similar task, I'll intentionally try to do it differently and tweak with it every time just because I want to see maybe there is a better way or maybe I like a different way. But if I don't try it, I'll never know. So my mentality, my mindset is always, if you don't try, you'll never know. And I would hate to regret and look back and say, what if I would have tried something different versus, hey, I tried it and work out. It's not my cup of tea or I failed, but I learned that that's one of the ways that now I can say that I don't like doing it or it doesn't work. So my that's how I develop. And then once I find something that I do like a topic or like in this case real estate investing, I basically grind at it. I basically practice it and try to look at it from every angle possible until it becomes like second nature. I've always been under the belief that you could be talented at something, but if you don't grind at it, someone that's not talented but grinds at it more than you will eventually outdo you. So that's how I do everything. I either I'm all in or I'm not doing it at all if it doesn't interest me. But once I'm on it, there's no stopping. There's no quitting. I grind until I know that I've gotten to where I want. And that's just a way to prove to myself that I succeeded versus letting myself fail, if that makes sense.
Makes sense. Is it tough to, I guess, turn away from other potential good ideas? Let's say, like in my example, I picked real estate, I'm focusing on real estate, and then I see some Yoo-hoo on Reddit just made $50 million in a month because of, some strategy that he was pursuing. It's like, hey, I've been keeping track of this set of parameters, and I noticed something. I'm going to put a bunch of money into it, and I know it's going to work out. It's just a matter of time. And it did. And so I'm thinking, man, it's such a simple strategy. Why am I slaving away at real estate, making not even a fraction of that, where this guy is pretty much retired for life at, however old he is, doing what on paper seems to be a trivial amount of work. I often question myself. I still just stay focused on real estate, but I often question, man, should I pivot or should I have pivoted earlier? Do you ever run into that?
I can't say that I do. And the reason for that is, like I said at the beginning of it, it's always the same for me. The first step always has to be something that interests me. If it's something that, hey, so-and-so could do much better, whatever, financially or, personally. If it's something, I'll look into it, right? It'll just like anybody else, it'll pique my interest, and I'll be like, hey, I wonder what that's about. But if, just like with the people, if I pick up on the cues and within the first, couple minutes, it's not something that it interests me, and I go, oh man, this is something that is really, really interesting. I would love to basically soup to nuts know everything about it. It won't bother me that person. That's their thing, right? That's their niche. That's what they are drawn to. If I'm not drawn to it, then I don't get my mindset ready and focused in the right direction to be able to do the next step, which is the grinding part, right? Because even though I'm drawn to something, or just like everybody else, you could be drawn to several different things. That doesn't mean you're going to be good at it. So now you're drawn to it, you start doing it, but if you're not good at it, odds are you're not going to be good at it because you've never experienced it before, you've never done it before, you're a rookie. Now you have to figure out a way how to get good at it. And the way that I know how to get good at anything is by grinding and by sticking with it for long enough until you become an expert. Well, if I'm not interested in it, why will I stick with something and waste, essentially, in my mind, so much time grinding at something that I don't find, appealing or drawn to?
That makes sense. Yeah, I can start looking at it like that. It's like, man, if I'm going to jump ship and try something new, am I willing to grind at it? And at this point, I think I've grinded so long with real estate, it just doesn't make sense for me to switch to anything else, unless it was, real estate related.
Right.
It would kind of be like throwing away all these years.
Exactly.
So totally switch to something else.
Ultimately, the one question that I like, it's not a question. It's a matter of, looking at the pros and cons. You have to answer this question, but it's not a question again. It's, what are you willing to sacrifice? If you're willing to sacrifice your time and energy you spent in real estate, which is what you now know and you're good at, to do something else, and if you can answer that with a yes, then by all means, go and do it. But if you're not, and in my case, it's a little easier to make that decision right, up front, it's not about how much time I've spent. It's about, is it appealing or is it something that interests me? Because if it is something that interests me, I'm not going to have time for more than likely, I'm not going to have time to do both. I'm going to be so immersed in the one thing that I'm drawn to now that the other one's going to basically be on the back burner and may not get any more attention. And it may be a very long time before I go back to it. And it's just, it has to be something that I am drawn to more so than what I'm already drawn to and I've spent quite a significant amount of time on.
I agree. See, next question is, when did you know, it brings us right into the next question. When did you know that you had something going on, something good going on, or like you had found the right path, I should say?
So this also has, like you said, it goes back to the previous question. For me, it's not so much knowing, it's anytime things that seem to come together on their own without me putting too much effort into them, and then they tie into each other, then you've done something, or you've been at it long enough or searched deep enough where now things are popping up without you having to go looking for them. So essentially what if I were to try to explain it, is you realize that you must be doing something right. So you're validating that you were in the dark to begin with. You've spent enough time doing whatever it is that you're doing that now your brain automatically starts to make connections without even you trying to now dig deeper. Now your brain is telling you, hey, you're doing something right. You're on the right path. And that's usually for me when I start to see things take off, and they take off exponentially. So you'll go from, having a little bit of information and having a little bit of success to now all of a sudden information is coming from everywhere, and you're able to sort through it much faster, and you're realizing that you're good at, segregating things and you're good at picking up the things that you need that are of value in that information and things that you just completely can ignore, that is, that is the point where you realize, hey, I'm good at this because I'm no longer, hanging on to every word on every page or every, whatever, YouTube video or whatever every person says. I am now able to decipher what they're saying and just pick out the valuable information and disregard the rest so I can move on to, getting closer to my goal. That's how you become good, for me.
Okay. When you figured out, I guess, how to gain inferences, or were you able to pick up on things without tripping over them, where you just kind of get a natural intuition about what the information you're accepting?
Yeah, so it becomes essentially second nature, where like a light bulb goes off in your head. It's like, hey, I've heard of this before, but I didn't know what it meant. Now I'm hearing it again, and based on all the information that I've accumulated up until this point, this new concept, even though I haven't really studied it much, it makes absolute sense, because now I'm making the connections where I don't need to go into the details of this new concept, because all the previous information that I've learned tie into this new concept, and it makes sense. Whereas before it didn't, and so I have to dig and keep finding stuff. And while you're digging, you're finding a lot of useless information. Now it's like, okay, this information and that information fit right into this new concept that I couldn't understand up until now. Now I get it. I don't need to go dig into this concept like I did in the previous ones and find, a bunch of useless information on top of good information. I can now immediately move on to the next concept that I don't understand and see if I can gather connections from something I've learned in the past to make this additional concept make sense to me. And that's where, like I said, it exponentially gets faster and faster, because you're making connections without even realizing it. And it's like a light bulb going on. You something you didn't know, now you know, and it's without any effort, because your brain makes the connections for you.
Yeah, I noticed when sometimes I'll pick up a real estate book or even a podcast. I'm not a huge fan of podcasts now, because I very often run into a point where it's like, this is not worth my time, or like, man, I already learned this, or what's happening a lot more now. I don't know what is contributing to this, but I'll listen to a podcast or a YouTube video and I'll go, that's wrong. And I don't need to double check it. I know it's wrong. I don't know where they got their information for. I don't have time to become an internet warrior to stake my claim. But all right, maybe I should just go back to what I was doing and just keep grinding, keep focusing, and keep working on whatever it is that I'm doing. I think that's probably when I decided, I'm definitely going to just stick with real estate.
And what you just said right now is the exact same thing I was saying, but it's a different way about it. Like you said, you hear somebody say something that you've already made connections to and you already know what it is. Someone else throws another piece of information at you about it, and because now your brain has done enough digging and enough time has gone by, you realize, hey, that's not right. But it's not worth your time trying to go deeper into understanding it further to see if it is or it isn't right. Your brain has already made that decision for you instantaneously. And that allows you to now move forward and learn something new, because you're not debilitated by the concept that you just heard and trying to see if it's, something you want to do more of.
Mm-hmm. Is there an element of your company? Well, it's about your company, so... I skipped one. So let me... tell me about your biggest deal that you've done, biggest real estate deal you've done.
So there's only one, if we're talking about real estate, and it's the one that's about to happen. It's the condo that I purchased. It was my first home that I purchased with my wife when we were in our early 20s. And essentially what we did is we got it with an FHA loan. and we paid bare minimum. I think it was something like $3,000 or $3,500, something like that. And fast forward, what is it? Maybe 10 years now, 11 years. I am looking at anywhere between $40,000 to $50,000 that I'm going to be walking away from this deal. And to me, that's the biggest deal I've done, because everything else I've done has been, through working a regular job, 9 to 5 or more, and basically getting a paycheck and saving it and basically little by little accumulating more money. Here it was, putting down as little as possible and walking away with a significant amount of, return on investment, and not doing much other than wait for time to go by and the property to appreciate, and basically my return of investment divided by the amount of time I've spent doing actual work is just the best ratio I could possibly think of, and it's the biggest deal bar none so far, or is going to be the biggest deal. I hope I could do it again and again and again, but as of right now, it's definitely the biggest one.
No, I mean, you said you only did one, but a lot of the listeners and people watching the channel have actually not yet done a deal, and so it's super inspiring to know that you don't have to do these crazy hard money flips, and everyone gets hyped about the BRRRR strategy or flipping stuff, but you can literally just save enough money from your W-2 job, purchase a property 3.5% down. Doesn't have to be a big property. You have to know what to look for, right area, right type of place. Just buy and then wait and then sell it. It's super simple, it's super slow, but it's very repeatable. It's relatively easy to do, and it works. It's just it's not a get rich fast game, but it's a get rich slow, get rich assuredly game. Did you say that?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, Michael. And I'll go a step even further. You don't necessarily need to know a good deal either. You don't necessarily need to know anything about real estate investing. I feel like the two biggest reasons why people don't do this are, one, they think that they need to find a good deal, when in reality you don't. There are real estate agents that can do that for you. I mean, for us, when this was our first property, we didn't know anything. We had no idea, and we looked at, dozens of places, and we had our realtor help us. She saw the place and she said, "Hey, I think this place has potential," and that was it. That's all he needed. And then the second one is, a lot of people think you need money, or that if you do it and you mess up, you're going to get in trouble. And the reality is that's not true. Just like you said, if you're willing to stick with it and let time do its thing, and you have that initial good deal that a real estate could find you, if you sit on it, even if it it doesn't have a great cash flow, because ours didn't. I think we were coming out maybe $60 a month in the positive, which is terrible for a cash flow. Absolutely terrible. But 10 years later, we went from an investment of $3,500 to $50,000, and we didn't do anything. We didn't pick the place, other than once the realtor said, "Hey, this is a good place," we saw it and we're like, "Yeah, it looks decent. We could live here." And so we don't have to pay rent because mortgage was cheaper. That was the main incentive. Mm-hmm. 11 years later, it went from $3,500 to $50,000, and we didn't do a single thing other than sit on it, like you said. But the biggest hurdle was doing it, because the mentality is, "Oh my goodness, now it's a mortgage as opposed to rent. I can't just walk away whenever I want." And that terrifies people. And if you can get over that, and no matter what mistake you make up front, if you can get over that and you just stay in the property, 5-10 years down the road, it will fix itself, is the biggest thing that I could tell people, because that freezes up a lot of people. 90% of people won't do it because of those two main reasons.
Hmm. I I'll hold you to it. So I'm at year 4 of my condo in Hawaii that's been negative cash flow because I thought it would just go up. And so far it's depreciated 0. it's gone through like ups and downs, but like at end of year 4, which is coming up next month, I bought it in 17. Nothing. Nothing, and or I guess I've lost money because it takes some fees to actually unload it, right? Well, even as a realtor.
You can look at it that way, but here's the other thing. Think about it from the aspect that I said the second reason why people don't do it. They think that you're locked into it and you can't walk away from it. That shouldn't be a con. That should be a pro, because like you said, even if it doesn't appreciate a single dollar, right? It stays the exact same, and now you're getting negative cash flow. The fact that you're paying it off in 10 years just by making the payments alone, you're still making more money than if you were to rent. Rent, it's basically once you pay it, that month, it's gone. Month after month, year after year. Here, you're paying into something that even if it doesn't appreciate a single dollar, you've now paid off the loan, or paid a significant amount of it off if you stay in it for 10 years. And that is equity that now when you sell it, you will get some of that money back. You cannot do that when you're a renter. So I don't see why it's a win-win situation no matter how you slice it.
Okay, that's a good way to look at it. Hopefully, it makes you feel a little bit better.
You'll be fine. I'm telling you, if you stay in there for 5 more years, or keep it for another 5 years, it's bound to outweigh the cons. It's bound to make you some sort of profit.
So, let's see. Next one. Is there an element of what your company does that helps the environment? Did you get a chance to answer that one? I don't even know if I like that question.
I did answer it. Right now, I wouldn't say if there was anything that I would say, and this is something very small, but I'm very big into energy saving. I would say one of the things that I could just think of based on what I did with my condo, not necessarily what I would do going forward, because I'm sure as you buy more properties, there's going to be more opportunities, just like everything else. But with my property, I immediately started looking for ways to save, because it was coming directly out of my pocket, save on things around the house. So, for example, I switched everything in the house to LED light bulbs, which it was to save money, right, for myself, but in turn that also helped the environment, because you're drawing less electricity, and light bulbs that are made traditionally are glass, and the LED light bulbs are, for the most part, plastic. So in itself right there, that's one little thing that helps the environment. You don't consume, you're not consuming as much, therefore you don't, you're not being a overly aggressive consumer, and you're saving on the reduction of throwing away material that otherwise could be used for something else.
Yeah, it seems small, but I mean, if all 350 million people in the U.S. do that, it does have a huge impact.
Yeah, and on the apartment, I think if I were to guess, I would say it's maybe anywhere between 5 to 10 light bulbs, right, in the whole entire unit. Between everything, the microwave, everything, right, everything. Take that to my house now, and I could easily tell you this because I've installed them everywhere. The house is a little older, and we didn't have light bulbs everywhere. Everything was, where you plug in a lamp into the outlet, and then you have a switch, and when you turn the switch on, it goes from the outlet to the lamp. So I installed LEDs everywhere, recessed lights. I think I have over 50. So just from one house to the next, I've, 10 times more energy savings just from that. And I'm going to continue to do that with all the places that I own, right? Because it's going to help me save money, but it's also going to have a impact on the environment. And little by little, like you said, it adds up.
It does add up. What are you working on now, other than the sale of your property? I know that probably takes up a lot of your time, but like, what are you working on other than that?
So just like we mentioned back with the question about development and do you shift focus, right now I am 100% invested in real estate. I am not. I'm sometimes even skipping meals because I'm in the middle of something. But I could go on for the next maybe 15 minutes, a list of things that I'm in. But just to keep it more broad, I'm on several things. For example, I'm in the middle of creating my LLC. I'm working with a few lenders on getting pre-approval letters to see how much money I can raise if I can't find a private investor. I'm also in the middle of selling the condo, as I mentioned, so I can raise capital that way so I can keep my options open. And then I'm also working on, getting private loans if I'm not able to, get enough capital to fund the deals for the next deal myself. And I'm reading tons of books. I'm reading, the Burr Method book. I'm reading, books on real estate tax, how to, reduce the tax that I would have to pay once I start purchasing, more properties. I'm also reading books on documents like, lease agreements and, contracts for, like I mentioned to you earlier before we had the recording conversation. How do you come up with a lease that is appealing to a tenant if you want a tenant to be in your apartment for more than 12 months, right? Several years. How do you structure a lease like that to incentivize a tenant to want to be in your property longer, therefore reducing your vacancy rate, therefore, ensuring that now you don't spend money advertising, you don't spend money, if you need to, stage the place. So I'm essentially immersing myself in every aspect of how I can make this business as efficient as possible. And it may sound like, oh, that is amazing and cool, but in a way it's a curse because I'll be up at night and another idea will come up in my mind and my engineering brain that I have. It'll be like, ooh, what if I look at this from this angle? Has anybody thought of that? And then I'll be searching and Googling and YouTubing things, and I'll be frustrated because there aren't many people that are doing this. And it's like, oh, my God, how am I going to get through this? Like, that idea now is in my head, but I don't have a way of knowing how I'm going to, go from A to Z to make it happen. So I'm, like I said, a million things, but just those few, 4 or 5 things I listed are the big ones. Everything else is like a subcategory of those.
Okay. No, it's tough, especially like once you know that something, like once you know you're on the right track, it's tough to like just kind of sit down and focus on like the one thing. There's actually a book I keep getting recommended called The One Thing, and I'm sure The One Thing, if I Google it, I could probably get the name of it for you.
Okay.
But it's designed to tell you, I assume, from what I've been told, what to focus on. Let me look it up. The One Thing book, and I think it was a white background. Yeah, here it is. And what's cool, maybe this will save you some time, is on Audible there's a summary for $4. Maybe it'll just maybe it'll save you some time. A website I really like is Blinkist. And Blinkist is, I think it's just a book summary website. I think they're mostly audiobooks, but it's awesome. It's definitely one of my favorite websites.
I'll definitely look into it.
Okay.
Could never learn enough.
And that'll help you learn faster too.
That's good too. Learning enough or learning more in a more efficient way.
Let's see. There's always something new with this camera. I think I need to work on my my workflow. This time the battery died. That's okay. Got a spare battery. Doing okay. And then maybe I can get like a Demery battery or something, so it just like hooks up to AC power. Let's see. Is this battery charged? All right, back in action.
There we go.
Cool. All right. So I'll probably edit this part out because where do you best provide value seems to be analogous to what comes naturally to you. Did you have two separate answers?
I did. And
okay.
This, for me, is a little different. And I mean, it will be different for everybody, right? Every person has a different value that they bring. But for me, I was lucky enough, if I can put it this way. But in real estate, I'm usually pretty good at having a vision. I've only done two, but going through a lot of places to look at to buy when we went with our realtor, a lot of the times, if not 90+% of the time, we saw eye to eye on properties because I was able to have a vision of what the project of that particular property would look like well before we even began working on it. And I accredit this to the fact that my dad works in construction, and I've been around constructions my whole life. And I've seen, properties that were, anything from buying a lot to, putting in a multi-million-dollar home on that lot to properties that were bought that were, completely neglected for many years to rehabbing them to where they are, livable and able for someone to call a home again. Mm-hmm. And I saw that working with my dad hand in hand. My dad's a plumber, and usually the way that most construction trades work is you go in at the beginning of the project with a scope of the goal of what you're trying to do, and just like electricians, just like carpenters, they start off with the basics. So with plumbing, you start off with the sewers. With electrical, you start off with the electrical panels or the electrical coming into the house. Carpenters with the frame. So it all starts at the beginning of the project, and you work your way through it as every different department makes a progress. So for me, I'm able to kind of like in my mind see the project work itself from nothing to where it would potentially be without even doing anything, because I know how it goes. I know how the electrical goes. I know how the plumbing goes. I know how the frame goes. So I'm able to see what needs to happen in order for the project to be successful. And then I'm also able to. I've kept in touch with a lot of the people that I've worked with while working with my dad. So even if I'm not 100% sure, I can just call up and describe to them in enough detail what my vision is, where they can tell me, yeah, that's doable, and you're in the ballpark. Or they can come back and say, no, you don't want to do that. That's not a good idea. So then I'm able to look at a deal or look at a property and say, I know where this property can be. I know that it's doable. Now, does it make sense? On paper, do the numbers work out to move forward? Where a lot of people don't have that luxury. So I think that's probably the best value that I can provide.
Okay. Yeah, we could use somebody like you on the team. It's always good to have someone who can see something different.
Hey, I'll be more than willing to help anybody. Like I said, to me, if I can help somebody reach their goals and get the same feeling that I get when I reach my goals, that's a win in my book.
Let's see. Our next question is, how can Mike, how can Mike provide value to you?
I think we kind of touched up on that a little bit earlier, not quite, but remember when I mentioned that because you live in a warmer climate, mm-hmm. and I live in a colder climate, so like for 8 months out of the year here it's pretty cold, and for you it's the opposite. I really think that if I were to go, and scale up, just because mm-hmm. of the vast land that we are on in the U.S., it's kind of broken into, north and south, right? So the northern part of it, I'm pretty sure I'm getting a good understanding by reading and reaching out to people about, what the cycles are and, what to do in colder climates and how to rehab a house and what to look for and what your costs are going to be, your major costs, and what your major savings are going to be. Whereas you are in a warmer climate, and I'm sure a lot of it is in reverse. But if I were to start investing further south, you would be able to provide me with, invaluable information as to, hey, you need to look out for this, that, and the other thing because this is what goes on in a warmer climate, right? You don't need to worry about, for example, for us, things freezing up, pipes. So insulation may not be where you want to spend a lot of your money on. Or, rusting things where, your whatever is metal in the house will begin to rust because we, use quite a bit of salt and the temperatures varying up and down will make metals rust much, much sooner up here than down there for you guys. And so you could tell me, on your side, you could come back and say, hey, you may want to watch out for termites down here because that's our number one problem. So that, to me, would be invaluable, right, before I even start a project to know, hey, Alex, you're in a part of the country where, 6 months out of the year, we have rain. And you may want to have a really good sewer system because otherwise you're going to get back flooded. And you're going to end up paying through the nose for the repairs because water damages anything it touches. That type of stuff would be, to me, super valuable to learn from you.
Okay.
Or even something as simple as when should you buy, when the cycle in the area, when is a good time to purchase homes versus when is the cycle to sell homes? Because I don't want to go buy a house that's a good deal if it's, in the wrong cycle period and it's, 15% more expensive than I could get it 6 months later.
No, I'd never say wait for a good deal because of the cycle.
Okay.
Yeah, never. Never do that because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, you might wait 6 months and then, rates go up, 2 basis points or something crazy. Like we really don't know what's going to happen other than interest rates will probably not get any lower.
Yeah.
And if it's a deal, it's a deal. I mean, like you pay 50% extra, but you wouldn't live that close to the edge when you're investing with other people's money. So I wouldn't do it with yours either. Just make sure there's enough meat on the bone, enough margins in the deal for you to be okay doing, okay, maybe I paid 50% extra than I would have if I would have waited, but I got the deal anyway, and my cash-on-cash return is still 30%. That's the position you want to be in.
Yeah. And that's absolutely true. If you find a really good deal, it doesn't matter when it is. I always like to, like I said, my engineering mind is always like, how efficient can I be about it? I would try to schedule my projects so that the completion date and the selling of the property is in prime time. So then that way I could get rid of it as fast as possible at the best price as possible, instead of having to, pay the expenses an extra month because it's not the right time and now I'm, waiting on a buyer because there's far and few between, right?
Okay, I can see that. Don't try to sell around Christmas. That's probably the worst time in most cases. Just like during the holidays. During the holidays, it's not a good time to sell a home. You still can. It happens. Everyone's situation is different. There's definitely going to be somebody in the market. But typically, it's around wintertime. Is probably not a good time. People don't want to leave the house if they don't have to. It's cold. So yeah, generally around wintertime is not a good time to sell.
And it seems like around that time everybody's buying cars because all the car commercials are on TV.
Yeah, what does Lexus do? The December to Remember event?
Yeah.
I think I think Saturday Night Live did a skit on that. It's like there are very few people that are in a position to surprise their wife with a $50,000 brand new car. Those are like not the kind of surprises that you want.
Hey, honey, I've spent our life savings on a new car. How do you like it?
She was mortified, and I think she was like sleeping with a neighbor or something. That was how the skit went.
I'm gonna have to look at that because I'm pretty sure it's gonna be super funny.
Yeah, December to remember SNL. Yeah, there it is. I love Google. We don't even have to spell. I didn't spell any of that correctly. I just pulled it up.
I knew what you meant.
Yeah, it feels me. Lastly, what is your superpower?
I don't know if it's a superpower. And I think it's a superpower that everybody has, but not a lot of people use. I shouldn't even say that, because there might be people that do use it, they just don't talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it. It's the ability to let your gut dictate your actions instead of your emotions. I've never been in a situation where I thought it was a good deal or it sounded like a good idea, and then there was something just not quite right. I mean, it felt great, but then my gut was like, there was that one bit of, hesitation. And I've always, and I mean this 100% of the time, I've always found it where if I listen to my gut, no matter how good it is, sometime later I will come to realize that it was ultimately the right decision. Even if at the time it was everything that I knew, so all the information that I was presented with sounded like a good idea and it would have been a smart decision. If I listen to my gut, it has always come back to me to say, hey, at the time it was a good idea and it was, with the information you had, but at this time you would have regretted it. So listening to your gut over any emotion, I would say, is my superpower. And I'm able to do that. Like I will be super upset. Like I'll see something that I want. It doesn't necessarily go for, the real estate. It'll be some sale or something about something that I've all wanted. And I've, been waiting to get it for months. And then I'll go in and I'll be like, yep, it's priced right. It's exactly what I want. All I got to do is get it, buy it. And then my gut will say, not so fast. I can't explain it. I can't tell you why, but don't do it. And I'll be like, come on. There's no reason. There's no, just do it. And then I'll be upset with myself. And then I'll be like, you know what? If it's such a good deal, it'll be here tomorrow again. So then I'll sleep on it. And the more I give it time and the more I, calm myself down and let my gut instinct take over, sooner or later I come to find out that, hey, yeah, it was a good deal. It was on sale, but, now you look at reviews and people are like, oh, this, let's say it was a shoe. Oh, yeah, this shoe, 3 months into it, it starts to break into pieces. And you can't explain it because it's like, how would your gut know that fact that in a 3 months from now, this shoe would be, a piece of garbage that won't last? You wouldn't. At the time, it would be irrational to think that you knew that ahead of time. But sure enough, you look at it and you find ways to justify your gut, and it ends up saving you. For me, it saved me money, time, headaches, heartaches, a lot of things. And a lot of people use their emotions and they go, well, in that scenario, there's no way that you would know that the shoe would break in a few months. So you would say, it's the right deal, it's the right time, I'm going to get it, it's going to make me happy, and it would. But then, in 2 months, you would look back and you would still not feel bad about it because you said, hey, it was a good price. I felt good about it. I was happy. I'm happy with them. They broke, but hey, I wouldn't have been able to know that at that time. So you've taken your emotions, control your gut, and you ended up losing because now you got to buy another one. Not that it upsets you, right? But it is what it is. So I say follow your gut. When in doubt, any hesitation, if you have to think about it, even for a split second, your gut is telling you something that you don't know and don't need to explain it or understand it. Just trust me when I say you'll find out later on that your gut was always right.
Okay. That's an interesting way to think about it. I always try to, suspend the strength of my gut instinct. For example, I'm thinking, it's usually with retail therapy. It's like, man, I really just want to go and spend money on something stupid, something that I want, but something I definitely don't need. My gut is telling me to do it. So I have to like go back and think about it, like, you know what? Or, maybe it's not my gut. Maybe my gut instinct is I shouldn't do it, but there's something else that's going on that's telling me to do it. How do you know if it's your gut?
You said, what is the superpower?
Mm-hmm.
So the superpower is ultimately, the deciding factor. But prior to going and, pulling the ace out of my sleeve and using the superpower, I usually have another question that I ask myself, and this will probably help you more than the gut. Because if you haven't practiced the gut thing, this first step will eliminate a lot of things before you even get to the gut part. I always go into anything, and no matter what it is, if it's something that I want and it's not something that I need. So it only applies to things that I want, right? Like if I want a new pair of shoes, I don't need a new pair of shoes, right? Go back to that example. Okay, do you want it or do you need it? I want it. Okay. The next question that I always ask myself is, okay, does the deal that you see now help you? Give me 1 second there. One more second. I'm almost done. Okay, I'm coming. Yeah, my wife's like coming in saying that the kids are driving her nuts. So she's telling me to go help her. But we'll finish this out.
Tag me up.
We'll talk more, Michael. The question that I asked myself, back to what I was saying, is, do I want it? And if the answer is yes, I want it. Okay, you don't need it, you want it. I asked myself, what's the price? So let's say it's $25. Are you willing to pay the price 2 times over for whatever it is? Can you afford the price 2 times over and not be not bother you? If the answer is no, you don't need to move on to the superpower portion, to the gut. So a lot of times I find myself, I'll go in and I'll be like, oh my God, those shoes are amazing. They're, $75. They used to be $150. What a great deal, 50% off. What do I do? Do I want it? Yes, I want it. Can I afford to pay $150 for it? No. So then immediately right there, I'm done because I'm not willing to pay twice for it.
I like that. I actually, I started doing a thing where if I'm going to buy something I don't need, something like groceries or skincare or something, I take an equal amount of money and I put it into my Schwab account. And so just into my, my index fund. So I've decided like, maybe maybe I can afford this like expensive jacket, but would I really feel comfortable putting the money into, a Schwab account? Well, no, but it means that I still did it. But, I buy the jacket and then I feel a little bit better about it because I've also invested a similar amount of money or an identical amount of money into something that is beneficial. That's a depreciating asset versus like a jacket or a pair of shoes. Yeah.
And it's another way to look at it. Exactly. It's whenever you deal with things you want, you have to justify the price, and that's why I asked that question. If you need it, the price is irrelevant, right? It's a need. But if it's a want, you have to go through the steps of why you're getting it and is it worth it.
100%. Well, cool. Yeah, it looks like that's it. Thank you so much for the interview.
Anytime, Michael. Anything I could do, like I said, to help and reach out other people and give them any little insight that they can get on what other people are doing or going through to get to where they want. Like I said, it's a win in my book.
Awesome. And then I'll let you tag out and get back to the kids.
All right. Let me know when you want to schedule another conversation.
Okay.
I want to pick your brain a little more on the syndication part. I'm definitely going to get the book, and once I read a little bit more, I'll pick your brain too.
So yeah, I can't wait.
All right, Michael. And then I'll talk to my buddy again, see if he's interested in doing a syndication.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to hear from him.
All right, man. I'll let you go. You're like, what, 2 hours behind me? It's already 6 o'clock for me here, almost.
Oh, yeah. It's 3:42, so I'm okay. Plenty of time.
Good. You got time.
So, all right. Talk to you, Alex.
All right, Michael. Have a good one. See ya.
You too.
Thank you again. Bye.
No problem.